Well, welcome everybody. We are live with the Stay Home and Wine Down series of tastings. We distributed some wine packs to some lucky folks who were able to order those wine packs, and today we are talking about fruit wine. With me, I have got wine writer and wine organizer and all seemingly wonderful things that Paul does with wine. This is Paul Vigna from PennLive.com. He's written about Maryland wine, about Pennsylvania and regional wine, and brought together winemakers for a bunch of really interesting collaborative tastings over the years. Paul, welcome.
Thank you, Kevin. Nice to join you. I saw the one last night. Looked like it worked out very well with
it did.
Mr. Dave McIntyre.
Yeah, we had Dave McIntyre from the Washington Post on talking about some of our wines, and we've got a great lineup, and you're thankfully part of it. We're grateful to have you. So I'm going to pull up our speakers, our guest winemakers, and let them introduce themselves and say just a few words about their winery and maybe a preview of what we're tasting, and we'll go from there. Let's start with Cindy Rowe from Loew Mountain. Cindy, welcome.
Hi, I'm Cindy Rowe, and I'm from Blue Mountain Wine Crafters in Funkstown, Maryland. We've been a winery since 2016, and we do a lot of fruit wines. We do get a lot of sweet drinkers here, and in our area, there are a lot of wineries that have dry wines, so people are real happy when they come here. Our strawberry is going to be really sweet. That was one we chose to make pretty sweet. So I'm the winemaker. I did not go to school. I learned just coming up through being a hobby winemaker, and I always tell people it's a hobby gone wild. Hope you guys enjoy the strawberry.
I'm sure it will be well loved, and I will use this moment to say thank you, Cindy, and to everybody else for joining. And anybody else who's watching us live, feel free to start commenting or posting. And if you're tasting along, we'd love to hear from you. Next up, we've got Kevin Ford. Kevin Ford from Red Heifer. Welcome.
Hello, everyone. So I'm Kevin Ford of Red Heifer Winery. We're in Washington County, right on the Frederick County border. We've been open since about 2012, growing fruit since 2010. And our blueberry was one of our original wines that we started with. We had 4 wines originally. Now we've got dozens and dozens. And it's definitely one of our most popular, continues to be. 100% blueberry, and people love it. It's a good compromise wine for sweet and dry drinkers.
And so look at this. I mean, I'm realizing as I'm looking through this list, we're pretty heavy with Western Maryland folks on here, but and we'll talk about some other fruit wines around the state as well. But we've got Smithsburg in Washington County and Funkstown in Washington County. Thank you, Kevin, for being with us. We look forward to trying that blueberry. Next up, we've got Dan from Elemental Mead Company. Dan, moving east a little bit, or at least south.
Yeah, a little bit. We're in Frederick County in Middletown. We started in November of this past year, so great timing. But we are the sister company to Orchid Cellar Meadery and Winery, and Elemental is sort of the lighter session sparkling mead line that we decided to start out. And the idea is dead simple: honey, water, and the only other ingredients are printed right on the front. So dead simple and kind of back to basics, but using quality ingredients and local whenever possible.
Love it. So we'll talk a little more later, but I'm interested in the relationship between Orchid Cellar and Elemental, and talk about that when we're trying the wine.
Cool.
Thank you. Next up, Rachel Littman from Loew Cellars, who is actively staffing the tasting room right now. So there may be customers interrupting, and they will be live on Facebook and YouTube as we go. Rachel.
Hi, I'm Rachel Littman. I'm the granddaughter and 5th generation of Loew Vineyards in Mount Airy, Maryland. We're the 4th oldest existing winery in Maryland, so we've been around for quite a while. We do produce the full range of wines in terms of dry, sweet, normal grape wines, and meads are actually something that go back to my family history, back to the mid 1800s. So the honey and grape is what we'll be tasting today, and that's more of a traditional or a tribute to the traditional kind of meads that my family made in Europe in the mid 1800s. And it's been pretty fun, actually. They're for me almost the most fun wines to make because they're pretty sticky. But we take a lot of pride in them, and they're not usually what people think of when they think of meads. So that makes it a really fun experience for a lot of people.
And the whole concept of this being a traditional recipe is so cool, and having your grandmother and grandfather still very involved in the business is always a treat for people to come by and hear those stories. So, Rachel, thank you for joining, and we're going to jump next in our introductions to last but not least, Marina, who is live local late breaking on her phone. Marina, how are you?
Hi, everyone. So I'm coming live from our tasting room from Great Shoals Winery in Tacoma Park. So also dealing with some customers. Hold on. So all our production is based on the Eastern Shore of Maryland. But here at Great Shoals, we also have a tasting room that's a little bit more local to the metro area. That's here in Tacoma Park. We're going to be tasting the Tangerine wine today from our tropical Shoals line of fun, summery, tropical fruit wines. And that's made with a blend of traditional white wine that we make from Seyval Blanc grapes, and then fresh tangerine wine as well.
Very cool. So we've got a couple of varietals and a couple of blends as we go through here. Paul, any opening statements before we dive in and start tasting?
No, let's get rolling. I just feel bad I don't have the same backdrop that Mr. McIntyre had last night with his $200 bottle, his wine cellar in the back.
Yeah, you know,
I don't know if you noticed.
It is what it is. It is what it is. You're good. It works.
No, let's get
okay.
rolling, 'cause I'm glad to be part of it.
All right. So you want to start with the strawberry, which is from Blue Mountain. So Cindy, tell us a little bit about the strawberry, and then try some.
Okay, well, we buy our strawberries locally in Smithsburg, and our grape grower also has the fruit. So we try to keep it local, all in one place. I do sometimes get them from a couple other orchards, and I try to buy seconds so they're really nice and ripe. And we will put them in a big bulk bin, and I kind of make them the old-fashioned way, kind of like when I was a home winemaker. I put them in these net bags, and I put them all in the bulk bin, and I push them around. And when they're finished, I press them out pretty much by hand, and then we will let them settle and make the wine. And this wine, it's very sweet, slightly tart, and it's made from fresh, perfectly ripe Maryland strawberries, and it has aroma and taste of a strawberry jam, 10% alcohol. And like I said, it's very sweet. When you taste it, it's almost like jam. And today, I actually added a little bit. We started making slushies, and this is a Chardonnay slushie. I added that with the strawberry, and it made a nice mix. You can also put it with a Sprite and make a spritzer out of it if it's too sweet for you. But like I said, a lot of people, they really enjoy the sweet wines. So, on a hot day, if it's too sweet, you can always do the slushie with it.
So sweet wine is very versatile. So one of the very cool things about sweet wine is you can drink it, and sweet fruit wine, you can drink it just by itself, or you can mix it. And we've seen, especially with the cocktail culture taking off the last couple of years, that fruit wine has become, and local fruit wine has become, a major component in some bars where they're actually using it as part of cocktails. So that's very cool that you do that. And of course, the slushies are always a hit, especially on days like today where it is a bit steamy.
We just started our slushies last night, and we sold 70.
Seriously?
70.
One night. That's great.
First night, yeah.
Wow. So, Paul, any thoughts on this wine or strawberry wine in general?
Haven't tried it. I was curious. So, most wines, they talk about it taking months or even years to make. I mean, from the time you press to the time that you bottle and get it out, how long does that take? It's pretty short turnaround, isn't it?
It's close to a year. I did filter this, I try not to a lot of times because I like to keep as much of the strawberry as I can. But we did filter this year. So the last year's was a lot redder. This year's a little lighter and a little sweeter. Last year we did it not quite as sweet. So I think in the future I would probably make it a little less sweet, but it's still delicious. You get that ripe strawberry nose. You get the taste up front. Get that tiny tart at the end. It's real strawberries. I've always enjoyed making strawberry. That was one of the first fruit wines I made.
And how long is the production time from? How long does it take to make?
It takes about a year. I mean, you ferment it. Once it's fermented, it takes a while to settle. And I put the fruit in a net bag because it does help to capture all the seeds and some of the musk, and you can take that out. A lot of people will ferment fruit just kind of loose in there, but I find if you put it in a net bag, so I do 30-pound bags and I just throw them all into the bulk bin and I push them around just like you would grape skins when it's fermenting. And then when it's close to being finished, I'll just hand press them out, put them up on a rack, let them drip, and then let it settle. And then we'll transfer and let it settle some more. And then before bottling, we'll filter if we're going to.
Okay.
Any fruit wine will take a while.
I didn't realize that. So these are last year's strawberries?
Yes.
Okay. I didn't know that.
It was a great year. It was a great year for strawberries. Great year for everything.
Yeah.
So we have a question from Carrie that I shined up, and I'll try to remember to ask this throughout. But Cindy, what's the sweetest wine that you make?
This is probably it.
Okay, so the strawberry is the sweetest wine, and
we also have the dry reds. We have the dry whites. We have some blends. We have a lot of different wines, but it seems like a lot of people want the sweet wines when they come in here.
Yeah, and it looks like you make peach, cherry, and blackberry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got the whole fruit salad there.
We do. Yeah.
Which is good. And I would also add or ask you to add a little bit about what else you do at Blue Mountain Wine Crafters. People can come in and produce their own wine, right?
Correct. You can come in and produce your own wine. We do not have you producing it from the fruit because it would take a year and that would tie up our equipment. But you can buy wine kits to where the juice has already been pressed down, and we have those for sale in our store because we're a home brewing and winemaking supply store also, where people come in and they buy the equipment and do it themselves. And well, it takes about 6 weeks to make wine here, and we will take you through the whole process, teach you how to do it, and you'll bottle it. We'll create your own labels, and then you can take it home. And then a lot of people will buy the equipment and start doing it themselves. And in 2014, we took over the store where I started, and we started out as a home brewing and winemaking supply store. And people always ask me, how did you do this? And I just said, I just loved it so much. I was a dental hygienist for 30 years and I retired, and I just love the whole science of it. And I've had a lot of help along the way, like Kevin that's on the call. He's helped me, and a lot of other winemakers. You know, there's just a lot to learn.
Can we finally put to rest the debate over which is more fun, teeth or wine?
Yes. The wine is much fun.
Okay, wine is more fun.
I work about 60 hours a week, but I have never got up and said I don't want to go to work. I even get here early. I stay here late. It's a passion.
Good. So that's settled. All right. Well, Cindy, thanks.
But the only bad thing is I have to wear a mask again. I thought I would never have to wear a mask again, but I'm back to wearing them again.
Strange times indeed. Strange times.
Yes. It's been interesting.
All right. Well, thanks very much for joining us. We're gonna. I would encourage anyone who has this wine to chill it, obviously, and drink this cool. And don't be afraid to mix it. Don't be afraid to get creative and put it in things. So, Cindy, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
All right. Next up, I think we've got Kevin Ford from Red Heifer and Blueberry. We're starting with the varietals here.
Hello.
Welcome.
Awesome.
So
thanks for having us. Thanks for doing this.
Tell us about the Blueberry.
So our blueberry wine, again, is one we've been making from the very start of operations here. It is 100% blueberry, no grapes whatsoever. sometimes challenging to make. Known in the industry, if anyone's messed around with blueberries, they naturally contain something that is generally added to sweet wines to prevent them from starting fermentation again. So what that means is this potassium sorbate that's naturally in blueberry, when you're fermenting generally any other fruit, it's chugging along just fine, producing its alcohol seemingly okay. You might need some nutrients. With blueberry, you've got to babysit it. And interestingly enough, my very first batch when I was making it, I thought something went horribly wrong. It smelled like salami during fermentation. And so I've come to know that when I can sense that during fermentation, that it's actually healthy. And luckily for everyone, it settles down and takes on a fruity nose again, and just pairs wonderfully with soft cheeses. Just really a fun wine to work with.
So, Kevin, I have some experience tasting blueberry wines from around the country through some competitions, and I know, and in dealing a lot with Joe Fiola from University of Maryland, who's a big fan of blueberry wine. Blueberry wine can smell like blueberries. It can smell like cloves. It can have these certain characteristic ingredients. A lot of people who taste blueberry wine, you mentioned salami. I've never smelled salami in my blueberry wine, but I have smelled almost a blue cheese component to it, and
Okay.
and it's So I think it's very interesting to see what blueberry can do, and I know in a lot of places, and Linganore Wine Cellars is one. Bartlett Winery in Maine makes dry blueberry wine as well that is indistinguishable from Merlot. So blueberry really has an interesting structure and can become whatever you make out of it. So is yours really kind of fully blueberry? I mean, you smell it and it's like obviously blueberry.
I think folks that are fans of blueberry recognize it. I myself eat blueberries most mornings with oatmeal. So I'm one of those folks, but I'm known to be a little mischievous in the tasting room. If someone turns their nose up and hears fruit wine or blueberry, I will sneak it into their tasting, and they'll inevitably say, "This is wonderful. Which one is this?" I say, "Oh, that's our blueberry."
That's great. Paul, what's your experience with blueberry wine, and any thoughts on this?
Not too much. I was interested in how does the sweetness change from year to year, or is it generally, what's this, around 3%, or does it depend on does it vary from much?
Not too much. We always back sweeten just so we can control some of that. And I also like to make sure that it's not overly sweet, because when you're eating, say, a handful of blueberries, you start out and you get the sweetness from the juice, but as you gradually chew and you're working through the skin of the fruit, there's a tartness and bitterness. And so I try to achieve that experience with the wine itself, and bitterness in a good way, so that you're drinking blueberry.
Yeah, I like this, and I'm also one, usually every morning it's blueberries on the cereal, so a real nice taste to it.
Thank you. We tried to put health claims on the label, but the TTB, the label regulatory folks weren't fans of that. No health claims with wine.
No, you don't dare try to claim that wine is healthy, although we all know it is. Since this broadcast is not
right.
a regulated entity, we know that wine has real health benefits, and blueberry is kind of king of that because of all the anthocyanins. So that's
Absolutely.
the vocab word of the day. Kevin, anything else you want to say about Red Heifer or bringing people up to the winery?
Oh, let's see. Well, like many other wineries, we have loads of space for social distancing, clean mountain air, lots of hiking trails nearby. And at this point in time, our tasting options are shut down. We're doing by the bottle. However, we have so many bottles to choose from. dry reds, dry whites, off dries, semi-sweets, sweet wines, dessert wine. I tend to get rather bored with sticking to the same thing. So I tend to approach winemaking from a brewery perspective. I like to have a lot of options and try different things, much to my own detriment sometimes.
I will put a plug on one of those wines that is a little different, and that's the Blaufränkisch, which you don't see much. And I think we've had one winery in Maryland make a Blaufränkisch before, and I don't know that they do anymore. So you may be the one making that. So I do encourage folks to get out and try everything that the winery has. Don't go in with your kind of presumptions and preconceived notions. Try through their line and then make decisions, because you'll, like your trickiness with pouring blueberry to folks who turn their nose up, you'll inevitably be surprised.
Absolutely. I'd agree.
All right. Well, Kevin, thank you. And feel free to hang on. If other questions come up, we may pull folks back in to answer them. So with that, let's jump to something different. And Dan, that would be you. You are the definition of different with Elemental Mead Company. So tell us about Elemental and where it came from, and the packaging and the blends and everything else.
Right. So we are the sister company to Orchid Cellar Meadery and Winery. And basically what was happening is honey's expensive, especially if you get it locally. The fruits and spices that go into it are expensive, which makes it good. But it also takes anywhere from 18 to 48 months to make those batches of classic old school monastery style meads. And what was happening is, as the batches were growing, the amount of money we needed to sit for 3 to 4 years for those batches was growing and growing and growing. So we needed something that was lighter, more refreshing, quicker turnaround, and just a little more like fun and approachable, because a lot of people aren't exactly sure what to expect when they try mead for the first time. So we decided to go with something that was very to the point. It literally is called Grapefruit and Hops Mead. In addition to honey and water, those are the only 2 other ingredients. Basically, we sell these by the 4-pack. There's just like a little 4-pack holder that clips right onto the top of this. This is an aluminum bottle, so it's endlessly recyclable. And you don't have the issues with glass that you can have with sparkling or taking it to the beach and accidentally breaking it. The idea is just super simple. And it also, because it's made in Kentucky, we don't have to deal with any tariffs, which is fun. But yeah, basically, whenever you're making a mead, you always want to look for an acid source, because that's the one thing that honey's lacking just a little bit. So some people add like citric acid or some sort of chemical acid to do that. We would much rather use it as a flavor. So the acid in this one is the grapefruit, and a little bit of the acid from the hops helps as well. We resisted this for a very long time because a lot of wine drinkers, they hear hops and they go running for the hills. So what we did is we made grapefruit the main flavor and hops a pleasant secondary flavor that just kind of lightens everything up. It's 7%, it's sparkling. It sits somewhere in between a nice crisp cider and sparkling seltzer. So they go down rather easy. We have people all the time that ask us if there's actually any alcohol in it, which I think is a good thing. That's what we're going with. So
that's a dangerous question. Is there any alcohol in this alcoholic drink?
Yeah.
Super smooth.
It is after you've consumed 3. Yeah.
Paul, what are you smelling?
He's right. It's this will, but I'm sure be the most unique product we try today. Nice and light. I love the little fizz. I could see relaxing. What do you talk about in terms of pairings with this? Anything in particular, or
yeah,
what would you pair with?
Something like this, because you have a good bit of acidity, you can definitely. Sorry, I'm trying to keep my cat out of the picture. You can definitely do something that has a little bit more, fattiness, because the acidity definitely helps to cut with that. Even as something as simple as like one of our favorite things to pair with it is like a baked brie. Because the creaminess, a little bit of the fat, just a low salt cracker, it goes super well because brie and honey is just a natural combination. And with this, I have plenty of people that, they drink one or two, and then after that, they come back and they go, I get a bit of a honey taste out of this. And, then at that point is when I explain to them that mead is in fact fermented honey and water together. It's a very light flavor. So that's kind of the cool thing is, depending on what you're looking for is sometimes what you pull out. So if you're a beer drinker and you're looking for hops, when you pull, you're looking for the hops, that's kind of what you taste first. If you hate hops and you run away from them, typically people taste grapefruit right away. And that grapefruit honey combination is really smooth, really easy to get into. Yeah.
Yeah, I call it a cider frizzante.
I like it.
So Dan, we've got a question, and it was actually something I was going to ask. How do these compare? You mentioned a little bit at the beginning how they compare or contrast with Orchid Cellars meads, but why don't you refresh us?
Yeah, absolutely. So like the one that Carrie's asking about, the cobbler, that's made with a few thousand pounds of local white and yellow peaches. That is borderlining right around 18%. So that's typically something that we call a sipper. It's got a fair amount of sweetness to it, but it's all in balance with the amount of alcohol and the amount of acidity. So as long as when the sweetness goes up, the alcohol and acidity goes up with it, you get this nice sort of well-balanced product. Versus if you were to have, say, a high alcohol drink that has low sweetness and low acidity, it can seem harsh and you can taste some off flavors, especially in the mead world. So that's kind of the rule that everyone goes with, or at least the ones that I think do it quite well. So the cobbler is a good bit stronger. It's almost like silky. It has a higher viscosity to it. Whereas the grapefruit and hops and everything else in the elemental, like I said, somewhere in between like a cider and a sparkling seltzer, super light, super refreshing, but it still reminds you of those flavors that you typically get from an Orchid Cellar classic mead.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And the packaging is really innovative, and I love that you're getting aluminum locally, which is great.
Heck yeah.
Heck yeah. All right. Well, Dan, thanks for joining us, and certainly people need to head out there, and you also have great outdoor space as well.
Tons. Yeah, and our wildflower field is in full bloom until typically the end of October because we are a honeybee sanctuary.
As you should be. You're a meter.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, thanks, Dan. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Next up, we are going to jump to Rachel from Loew Vineyards. Again, warning, she's anxiously awaiting customers to come in and serve. So we understand if you need to duck off and hopefully sell some bottles.
Yeah,
so what did you bring us?
So I brought the honey and grape, if I can somehow get that on there. The honey and grape is it's a version of a mead. It's actually considered a pyment, Pyment. And the way that Dan had mentioned that the way you make mead is honey, water, yeast, nutrients, and the way that you make a pyment is instead of using all the water, you actually use grape juice. So from this batch, or I consider them vintages, even though you can't put a vintage on honey wine, from 2018, it was wildflower and clover honey, and then Seyval Blanc, and then we barrel age it for about a year. So the acid of the grape juice actually helps balance out the sweetness of the honey. And we ferment it all the way down to completion, and then we back sweeten from there. So it's really not that sweet. It's only 2% residual sugar. So I usually, for people who know different categories of wines, especially like in Germany, like of ice wines, like Auslesas, it kind of reminds me a bit of that, just in terms of the sweetness level and the lower viscosity compared to what people usually think of mead, which for me, I say it's not like it's from the Renaissance Festival. It's much, much daintier than that. So, but our family history has been making mead. I mean, my family, I'm a 5th generation of making mead in my family. So it's a pretty it takes a lot of pride to make these wines. Yeah.
Paul, any thoughts on the wine?
Kevin, can I ask, is it difficult to get people to try this?
So sometimes I think there's actually been, I think, a resurgence of mead, of people who are interested in them. And it always surprises people because they think they're getting something like really sweet, and it's not remotely like that. It was actually interesting. I was talking to a cooper. We're looking to get more barrels, and I said to him, I might want 2 more barrels for my honey wine. And he said, oh, well, you should definitely take one of my cognac barrels. I said, no, like it won't work that way. He said, well, what do you mean? And I said, well, try to explain to him, the type of the wine, what kind of style it was in, and like what flavors I got out of the wines that we typically make for our meads. And he was kind of skeptical. And then I said, you know what? I have a bottle of the mead in my car. Why don't you try it? And he tried it, and he was like, oh, I see what you're saying now. He's like, I was not even thinking about that, even after you explained it to me 10 times. So it's really interesting how people, I think sometimes they think that they know what they're tasting with it, and other times they don't. And even people who say they don't like certain types of wines end up liking it. So it's very interesting.
And you also have the apples and honey as well, right?
Rye mead. That's a sizer, and that one's like totally different.
Yeah.
That's like a Sauvignon Blanc and a mead together, if that was possible. And then actually, we were barrel tasting some of the meads on Wednesday, Thursday, whatever day of the week it was, and we have I made a double batch basically this for 2019, and it was beautiful. I was so excited, and I actually separated the barrels by the honey that we used. It's all from the same producer, but each bucket of honey actually can taste very different in terms of the wildflower honey. One of the buckets, or a couple of buckets, had this really cool like mandarin orange character, and the other one had like this really cool burnt caramel character. And so I'm separating them, and one's going to be dry and the other one's going to be like our typical honey and grape. It's really, mead is very versatile, and I don't think people really truly understand how sophisticated it can be. What do you think, Paul?
I do like it. I'm surprised at how light a lot of these are. And of course I like the fact it's just the 2%, which I don't know, does that change? Again, I think I've asked this before, but is that pretty much where you try and stick with this sort of a semi-dry?
Yeah, for this one, for honey and grape, it's going to stay around that 2%. I think there's been a couple of years it goes up to 3%, but it honestly depends on the acidity and the type of grape that we use. The Seyval and the Reliance that we've used in the past couple of years tends to be a little bit lower acid. So because of that, the overall product is lower, so you don't need to have as much sweetness. The Vidal Blanc I used in 2019 was a decent Brix level and fairly normal acid level. So that's why the wine works entirely dry and as a semi-sweet. So, but I like the balance. I mean, if you have too much acidity, and you don't have enough sweetness, it can be a little bit sharp. If you don't have enough, if it's too sweet, I mean, that's self-explanatory. You can't taste anything really. So we try to keep up more on the minimal range for the past 30 something years. And they age beautifully. I mean, in our family, for all of our like family gatherings and like Thanksgiving, we open the 25-year-old bottles of mead of our honey wines. And like, I just wish everyone could try them. They're beyond beautiful. I mean, they're what you expect for Nastleza that's been aging for that long. It's a weird comparison, but it works actually.
Do you grow all those grapes there?
We're in a big rebuilding phase of our vineyard. We had to replant about 40% after all the 2018 rains. And we decided to retire some varieties and then add a couple of new ones. We're actually the first grower in Maryland to be growing Zweigelt. So I took out the Seyval and I added Zweigelt instead. But the other, we are buying fruit from local, everything's in Maryland. And that gives us more versatility, like growing, working with Chardonnay doesn't really work here. So on our property, but there's different things that I would rather other people grow that I can purchase from them in Maryland. And then other things that I can experiment that will give us more of connection to our family heritage in the Austro-Hungarian Empire. And hopefully, my grandmother's watching this and probably my grandfather. I would love to plant the 12 acres or 13 acres behind their house. So that's my goal in doing varieties that are a little bit atypical, like Gruner and stuff like that.
So you mentioned Zweigelt,
Excellent.
which is a really, really cool Austrian grape, most commonly found in Austria. And then you also mentioned Reliance, which you turned into a beautiful wine called Serendipity. And that goes back to what I was saying with Kevin Ford and Red Heifer. You got to get out to the wineries and go in open-minded and try through their entire line of products, because you will inevitably taste things that you've never tried before and that completely surprise you.
I would agree. I mean, I think the interesting thing is like we have about, I think, 13 wines on our wine list right now. Mm-hmm. By the end of the month, I think we'll have like 15 different types of wines and styles. And what I always say to people is, I mean, you can choose and stick within your own realm, but 9.7 times out of 10, the ones that you're going to try that you don't think that you're going to like, I mean, people end up enjoying from the dry wines to the fruit wines to the meads. My mom is a big Sauvignon Blanc, like from New Zealand drinker. Like she doesn't drink anything else if it's not from Marlborough. And she absolutely loves the apples and honey, which I've seen a question saying which wine in your lineup would suggest for a Sauvignon Blanc drinker. So apples and honey, because it has that really bright citrus notes. And actually my Chardonnay, I've surprised a lot of people with that. It's only Asian neutral barrel for about 6 months, still has really a lot of bright green apple acidity to it. And that's, I actually converted a non-Chardonnay drinker, and I told her it was an ABC wine, anything but Chardonnay. And she really loved it. So that was really cool.
Well, Rachel, I wanted to thank you very much. And again, encourage everybody who's watching now and later, get out to Loew Vineyards and taste the history and also taste some of the very new cool things that Rachel is pushing forward there. So Rachel, thanks.
Thank you.
Dan, I was going to call you back up with the cat, but...
Oh, he's here.
He's here. Okay. All right. Cat cameo. Thank you. Wouldn't be a live stream without a cat cameo.
Hi, Harvey. Black cats do great with photographs and video.
Well, look. That's why you picked a nice background. All right. I love it. All right. So next up, while we have Marina in between customers, Marina from Great Shoals, thanks for being here. Tell us about this cool wine and the cool line that it's part of.
Yeah, so this is our Tangerine wine from our Tropical Shoals line of fruit wines at Great Shoals. So this whole line is just something kind of cool that we came out with last summer. Typically at Great Shoals, we started our foray into fruit wines more in a cider style. So we had a whole line of hard ciders, and then we had a couple fruit wines, strawberry and blackberry and peach, that were made in that cider method. So this is really something different for us, something new, and we came out with it. These are all traditional wines, 75% traditional wine, mostly Seyval Blanc. And then we add that other 25% of whatever fruit that we want to feature in the wine. So this one has 25% tangerine wine in it. So they're super fruity. You can really taste the entire fruit in there. It tastes like you're biting into a tangerine. And the nice thing about using that fruit wine and the fruit concentrate is that you don't have to add too much extra sugar. This one is around 6% residual sugar, so typical for a sweet wine. I heard somebody mention earlier mixing these and making cocktails and stuff. We actually love doing that specifically with this tangerine. So this tastes great mixed with other drier white wines, with a dry sparkling wine, hard seltzer, or just regular seltzer as well.
The idea of mixing that with a sparkling wine or a dry seltzer sounds very, very cool. What's the alcohol content?
This is 11.5%, so about a standard white wine content.
And what are some of the other wines in the line? So Tropical Shoals is new this year, right? Or new within the last year?
New last year.
Okay.
Yeah, so we came out with it last summer. So in addition to tangerine, we also have kiwi, passion fruit, mango, and strawberry mojito. And then also part of the Tropical Shoals line, we have our lemon, which is a dessert style fortified wine. That one's at 20% alcohol. So that's our highest ABV wine.
That's pushing a limoncello style.
Yeah,
Really.
it's exactly what it tastes like too.
And these are all, you said Save Blanc as a base?
Yeah, so all of them are 75% Save Blanc. And then that lemon also has a little bit of brandy. And actually, the owner of Great Shoals Winery co-owns a distillery, so that brandy is made by us as well.
Very cool. Paul, have you had a chance to taste this one?
I have. It is amazing to drink this and taste the tangerine so prominently. But I'd love to the first thing I was going to ask too was about the mix and the mixed potential for something like this or any of the others in that line. What led to the idea in the first place to go in this direction? I think I've had your sparklings, maybe the Great Shoals.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I'm familiar with that, and they were always absolutely great. So to see you sort of go from that into this is it's an interesting change.
Yeah, and
addition.
we still do have the sparklings. But so our sparklings and our drier wines, we still make those and we love those. But this is a fun line for people who maybe are a little bit newer to Maryland wine or new to wine in general. So we're always looking for wines that we can make that people are going to just enjoy drinking. And it's really nice to just have something to offer people who are maybe hesitant about wine tasting or they've never done it before. And this is a great foray into that experience for them. Plus, they just taste so good.
Yes, they did. Yes,
Yeah, I
they
mean,
did.
I just know that in kind of a outdoor event format where you've got a concert running and something like that, fruit wines are perfect for that.
Yeah.
You know, a nice cold fruit wine is ideal, and I think you've come out with this blend of taking some of the tropical flavors that truly makes a unique splash in Maryland. So thanks for doing that.
Hey.
All right, Marina, thanks for joining us. I'm going to drop the screen right there. And Paul, any overall commentary about the wines you've tried? And then I want to open it up to the panel. I'll bring folks back up.
This has been an education. I mean, you asked me, I don't normally drink the fruit wines or some of these. I've had some meads. But I just the way producers are sort of stretching and looking for other, like this line, looking for new audiences and new products to give them. It's really been an education in sort of where the industry's gone beyond the traditional. And I was also really intrigued by the container for the Elemental Mead Company container. I mean, canned wines have just exploded over the last couple of years. So it was pretty interesting to see what they've done and wonder sort of where the industry is going to go to be able to sort of bring along, like to the beach or wherever, to actually bring along the product rather than a traditionally sized bottle. I don't know.
Yeah,
what have you seen?
Well, I love that format, and I think we're starting to see that innovation within the industry of putting wine in cans and making it a little more easily accessible for, someone who's not sitting around sipping. They're out hiking, or they're headed to a destination and would rather not be carrying around glass. So I think that's a pretty cool thing we're seeing. Paul, I'm going to bring the panel back up and just kind of ask what's next. Like, where do you see yourselves going with product development, and what can folks expect to see in the next year? Let me bring the team back up. So where are things headed? What's going to happen in the next year, and any new products or any innovations or any changes, or what can people expect? Unprepared question.
Well, I didn't want to interrupt anybody. I'll start. Well, we have a lot planned for the next year.
Yeah, thank you.
Started to redesign our label a bit, and we are working on our outdoor space, even though we have tons, so people can bring picnics and all that stuff. We're vamping up our wine production this year, so we'll be making a lot more red wines and have a lot more cool stuff to choose from for people. So it's a very exciting time for us, but it's a little bit different because tasting rooms are not back to the way they would typically be.
Yeah, we're living in some odd times. Anybody else have some changes, upcoming changes or announcements?
Yeah. So we've started to adopt a bit of a brewery model for our product line, where we keep 4 staples in stock year round as best as possible. And then we rotate through limited seasonals, things of that nature, because we can make things in, I think the shortest turnaround we've done is about a month and 3 weeks, which, in wine terms is, incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, the idea is just to keep the packaging super simple, focus on the quality of everything, focus on the approachability of mead for people who've never tried it before. And considering we have all these farms around us that basically, they sell all of their firsts, but when they get to their seconds, their fruit, they don't really have hardly anyone to sell it to because it's not a massive amount of it. So what we do is we drive around and we'll pick up, 500 pounds of blackberries here, 500 pounds of blackberries there. And they're not perfectly shaped, or maybe a few are too big or too little. But once you smash them, as long as they taste good and smell good, that's all that matters. So it allows us to create one-off seasonal things just based upon what's available around us. So that's what we're going to run with hard.
Anybody else have anything coming up?
Yeah. Who's next?
Yeah, we'll go Cindy and then Marina.
Okay. We're planning on serving beer, getting a liquor license and serving local beer on tap. And also we are working on some ciders and some sizers. And we have mead also. So we're going in a couple different directions, looking for some new avenues.
That's great. And you've got a great, very cool downtown spot as well.
We do. We also have Blaufränkisch, but it is called Limburger in our winery. So we have that also. People love it. People have been really buying that up.
Yeah, it's many grapes have multiple names, and Blaufränkisch and Limburger, that grape got hit hard with some tough names, but
yeah, people always.
It's so good.
It still tastes great, right? It still tastes great.
Great. Yep.
Marina.
Okay, so we have a couple new things that are in the works. So I don't want to speak too soon because we don't have release dates, but we are looking to come out with yet another kind of offshoot line, and that's going to be more in the vein of like a hard seltzer with, of course, like a wine twist on it. So it'll be like a wine spritzer kind of thing in those little cans, like you guys have mentioned a couple times on this panel. The cans are just like a great thing that we want to add to our line. It's really nice to have like portable stuff like that. So we'll hopefully be coming out with that soon. And then for our tasting room in Tacoma Park, where I am currently, kind of in a different vein, but we are adding a lot more wine and beer from other producers to this location. So this tasting room, Great Shoals Tacoma Park, we're really looking to be a resource for people in the DC metro area to get to try Maryland produced wines and beers that they might not be able to find other places.
That's great. That means folks on this call have another place to sell their product.
Yeah, exactly. Hit me up.
I want to, Kevin, anything to add before we jump off?
Yeah, so we're also expanding into some ciders. We bought some nice used equipment from this guy right here above me, Dan. And so we'll be carbonating various things, and we've got a really nice kegerator. In addition to that, we're going to expand our peach winemaking. Last year, we hand-pitted several pickup truckloads of peaches, lost fingerprints in the process because peaches are so acidic. And so I'm talking to some wonderful Italian people that have this great pitting machine that I've read really good things about. So hopefully we'll be able to produce enough peach wine in the future to meet demand.
I will add to that. There's some incredible peach wine, yours, but also some other wineries around. Antietam Creek is one that I can think of that just has some killer peach wine. So come peach season, get yourself in, especially if you want to handle the peaches and help pit. Although it sounds like you and the Italian the peach gurus have figured it out.
It sounds like fun until you actually start pitting peaches.
Right. No, it always sounds great when I see that when wineries, oh yeah, come help us pit peaches, and it sounds like great fun. No, it's
in that case, everyone should offer to help. It's wonderful fun.
Oh yes, it's a lot of fun. Yes. Hey, Paul, you got anything you want to add?
Do we lose Kevin?
I'm here. Paul, you got anything you want to ask the panel?
Looks that way. There he is.
A little bit of a delay. Anything you'd like to ask the panel before we roll off?
I don't have any. No, I don't have any other questions. As I said, this was an education for me, and definitely some story ideas for down the road.
Great. We'll commit you to at least one fruit wine article going forward. So with that, thank you everybody for being on, and thanks to the folks who've tuned in. And we appreciate this, and we appreciate your time, and appreciate the wonderful products that you're making. Wave goodbye. Okay. All right. Rachel's out serving customers, so we'll pull folks off. And then Paul, just want to thank you again for moderating and co-hosting this. And we will hit the road. And I do want to let folks know that we've got a couple more of these tastings. We've got a red wine panel discussion today, and dry white and rosés, and some other great things coming forward. So we do have a sweet wine panel as well. We've got a couple of questions about sweet wine. So follow us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and we will see you for those panels. And with that, cheers, everybody.